Every modern web browser has an incognito or private browsing mode, but did you know that most of them aren't actually private? The browser manufacturer can usually still see everything you're doing. Google recently settled a $5 billion lawsuit after being accused of secretly tracking users using the incognito mode in Chrome. Google's defense? Incognito does not mean invisible. In fact, all of your online activity is still 100% visible to a ton of third parties, unless you use ExpressVPN. Every time you go to a website or you open an app that goes to a server somewhere without using ExpressVPN, the IP addresses of every place you visit on the internet are visible in the open to your internet service provider. That's how they route your traffic. Same goes for your mobile network operator or the administrators of your Wi-Fi network, whether that's your home, your boss, your school, or your parents. They can all see everything you do. But ExpressVPN encrypts everything you do, and it sends it to a secure server that is running in RAM so that it can't be, and it's not logged. As soon as you disconnect from ExpressVPN, that virtual server disappears, never to be seen again. And everything that goes through your router at home or through your network is completely encrypted and it's meaningless to anybody that tries to look at it. When you use ExpressVPN, those third parties can't see your IP address. They can't see the IP addresses you're going to. All they see is a flow of meaningless bits. It's easy to use. Just launch the app, click one button, and you're connected and you're protected. It works on every one of your devices, your phones, your laptops, your tablets, and more. So stay private on the go. ExpressVPN has been rated the #1 VPN by top tech reviewers like CNET and The Verge. I've personally been using ExpressVPN for about 5 years now, and I pay for it myself. I paid for it long before they were an advertiser for wheel bearings. And every time that I'm out in the open somewhere, I'm not so worried about my home network for most of the things I do, but sometimes there are things that I want to keep private, and I use ExpressVPN. Or if I'm out and about, I travel a lot. If I want to connect to my bank to check on something on my bank accounts, I don't want anybody on an open Wi-Fi network seeing that information. So I use ExpressVPN to encrypt everything I do when I'm online, when I'm traveling. In my job, I have to travel a lot, and ExpressVPN is fantastic. So protect your online privacy today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's EXPRESS, V as in Victor, P as in N as in Nancy, .com/wheelbearings. That's WHELLBEARINGS. And you can get an extra 3 months free when you sign up. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. Coming up on episode 361 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the Mercedes EQS 450 SUV, Honda Ridgeline Trail Sport, the Porsche 718 Boxster, the new Toyota Camry Hybrid, Ford updates the Maverick, Audi launches an electric A6, BBS and Recaro are in bankruptcy, a motorcyclist gets killed by a Tesla on FSD, the Mach-E gets an OTA performance upgrade, Ineos is narrowing its focus, there's an automatic GR Corolla from Toyota, and Mini takes the States. All that and more coming up next. This is episode 361 of Wheel Bearings. I am Sam Abuel-Salmon from Guidehouse Insights.
I am Roberto Baldwin from SAE International.
And who's
I'm
that
Perry
third
Stern.
person?
Oh, who am I? I'm Perry Stern, and I'm from a whole bunch of different places, including JD Power, Capital One, MSN, et cetera, et cetera.
So, Perry, this is the first time, we've known each other a long time, but this is the first time you've been on the show. Tell the listeners give them a little background on who you are.
So I've been doing this, what seems like forever. I started out being working for an auto consultant in the early 90s. And then Microsoft came up with this idea called the Microsoft Network, as most people know it as MSN. And they started their automotive site, and I was hired on in 1996 and worked there in various capacities, ending as editor for MSN CarSource or CarPoint, and then MSN Autos. Until 2014, they decided to change their system, laid me off. And since then, I've started my own company. I have a site called autonxt.net. Everything I publish goes up on MSN. So I'm continuing to populate their site with my content. But I write about every new vehicle. To give you an example, a couple of weeks ago, I had a Porsche in the driveway. The next day, I had a Kia in the driveway. So it's a little bit of everything, and it's still one of the coolest jobs there is.
Absolutely.
So it's a 96 to 14 to 2000. That's like 18 years.
22.
Yeah, I was at Microsoft a long
18,
time.
18, yes.
That's
18 years, something like that.
Okay, so if for all y'all that don't work in media,
That's a hell of a long
I know, it's
time.
unusual.
that's like 5 lifetimes in media. Like I had a job for 5 years at one place, and that's felt like forever in media.
Well, I started the company that I'm doing now, I guess, almost 10 years ago now, which is crazy to think about.
If you want to
time
do it right,
flies
do
when
it
you
like
get old.
Perry. That's the that's what we're taking away from today. Gonna do it right. Do it like Perry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, at least in that particular instance.
All right. So, Robbie, what have you been driving this week?
I haven't been driving anything except I did take Ioniq 5 down to Palm Springs and back. And the last time I drove was a few weeks away to LA in an i7 and an EV. I was just, like 30% of the EA stations were down. This time, those stations were back up, and I was.
And the other 70% were down.
Yeah. Not so. We give EA a lot of we
Grief?
give them a lot of grief. There you go. That's the word. We give them a lot of grief, and rightfully so. But
That's just it.
they this trip was easy peasy, and I was hitting 230 like peak. I think on one of them, they give you a little a receipt in your email, and I think it was like 239. The Ioniq 5 was the cap out of like 234 or something. So I was hitting some really nice numbers. Everything was charging really quickly. It wasn't, of course, it wasn't a holiday week. And I wish all these stations had been up during the holiday week so people didn't have to wait. But I think I only had to wait once for like 5 minutes for a station. But yeah. And one of the things I did was a thing that I did a video about recently about preconditioning and heat pumps, how to sort of like make your vehicle work, conquer the cold. Well, preconditioning, I talked about, it's something you should do everywhere whenever you're going to charge. So I would have like whatever, I have a better route planner or Google Maps running, typically a better route planner with the EV. And what I would do is I would just go into the Hyundai app, the Hyundai navigation, in-car navigation, and just tell it the address of the next charging station. So it would precondition the car, so as soon as I get there, it'd start charging. And I was, on the way there, I used the better route planner. On the way back, I decided to use the Hyundai in-car stuff because it'll actually give you routes along the route. It's just a really weird system. Hyundai's navigation system is just really odd. But it will tell you, stop here and charge, stop here and charge. I'm like looking at the screen. There's 1,000 things going on. I couldn't tell you if it ever told me like what my battery, my state of charge would be when I got to that station. But it's like, hey, you should stop here. Hey, you should stop here. Hey, you should stop here. So, so the automakers are doing a bit better with their route planning. It still was like it was more confusing than a better route planner, which is still essentially built by engineers for engineers. It's gotten better since Rivian bought it, but if you're doing long distance drives in your EV, things are getting better is what I'm saying. And even over the course of a few weeks, it feels like things are getting better. Plus I get like free charging for 30 minutes with my Ioniq 5.
And considering you can get from 10 to 80% charge in 18 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think I was ever on a station for 30 minutes. And so I just drove to Palm Springs and back for free.
That's cool.
There you go.
So that's pretty cool. So that's what I drove
festival.
this week. I have a car, but I think today I've been sick. So today or tomorrow I'm going to drive that car. And then I'll have it for next week. Information.
Excellent. All right. Perry, what have you been driving?
Well, actually, I have a Land Cruiser in the driveway, but I barely had a chance to drive it because I just picked it up. But a couple of weeks ago, I had a Porsche 718 Boxster.
I saw that.
I hadn't driven in a long time, and that was a good time.
Yeah.
It was not how I would have configured it, The Boxster, yes.
It was the Boxster is my best friend.
Well, this one was the style edition. So it, in case anybody didn't know it was a Porsche, it said Porsche in big letters along the side. It had a stripe down the hood. And unfortunately, it had the PDK, the automatic transmission, which works really well. It gets better fuel economy. It's quicker, and it's not near as much fun as a manual. But, beggars can't be choosy, and that's what they gave me. And it's still an absolute blast to drive. I mean, it's just so balanced, and it sounds so good. And this is even the base engine. So this is, around 300 horsepower. And it's still so much fun. It's not cheap. So base engine, automatic transmission, about $97,000 on the sticker. And I don't know. So I have, an old Miata in my garage that I paid $10,000 for. I don't know that it was $80,000 more fun. But it is great. I even drove it in the dirt because we were off to the Ford Explorer press event that required going down dirt roads in the rain. And car was, it got really dirty, but it was still a blast in the loose dirt. So definitely enjoyed that car a lot.
But was it as much of a blast as the Mach-E Rally on those same roads?
Probably not. Well, actually, I don't know. I think we could have had a good rally session between those two vehicles. I think that could have been enjoyable.
We definitely should have tried.
We should have.
So that was the base Boxster powertrain. What are the other? That's a turbo 6-cylinder, turbo flat six.
Yeah, and so they do have. I've had a chance to drive the GT4 RS, which is 400 and I have to look it up, but it's
a lot.
It's over 400 horsepower in that vehicle, and that with a manual transmission is probably the best sports car I've ever driven. It was just so perfectly balanced. It sounded so good. It was, it didn't, it wasn't going to blow the doors off of every car out there. It wasn't the fastest car on the road, but it was just so enjoyable and deeply satisfying to drive. The RS, the GTS 4.0 is 394 horsepower, sorry. But 0 to 60 is about 3.8, probably with the automatic because that's faster, but still absolute blast to drive. But even, like I said, it's a Porsche. It's, they've set it up so well that, even at, 40, 45 miles an hour, it's still an absolute blast. So, Porsche has a reputation it's built and it's well-deserved.
Yeah.
Excellent.
There's a reason when the first time you get into a Porsche, you're like, oh, this is why they cost so much. Like,
Exactly.
where all that money goes. You're like, okay, all right. I get it.
Right. It's the whole package. I remember the first time I got into a 911 and it was the same thing. It's like, oh, okay, I get it now.
So after the Porsche, it sounds like you had something else that was pretty much the same thing, right?
Yeah, almost exactly the same.
Got
It had
four
four
wheels?
just like the Porsche did.
A steering wheel?
I had a Camry, and
It's the
I hadn't had a
Porsche
chance to
Toyota.
drive a Toyota. Yes, I hadn't had a chance to drive the current generation Camry, so that was my first time in the Camry. They're all hybrids now, and I hated the fact that I liked it so much. I'm supposed to.
You
like
went in
Porsche.
just wanting to hate this thing, and
I did,
Or
and
you
it's
just accept it as a Camry, but instead you're in love.
But it looks good. It's actually got a kind of a nice interior. It's had red leather seats. It was the XSE, and it's got good power. It's not a sports car. It's not going to handle terribly well, but it holds its own all right. But the most impressive thing was going to the airport on I-94, going 70 plus miles an hour and averaging 37 miles per gallon.
it's not too shabby.
It's just, no, I mean, that's impressive. And so it's not a car that I would ever even consider buying because it's a Camry. But obviously, lots of people buy Camrys, and there's good reason for it. It's got plenty of room in the back seat. It's got a huge trunk. I mean, if you're going four-door sedan, it's hard to beat.
It's camtastic.
Even if it isn't an enthusiast car.
Yeah. But you know what? The vast majority of drivers are not enthusiasts. Most people don't really care. What most people want is something that is functional, that meets their requirements in terms of how many people they need to carry, how much stuff they need to carry, and gets them from where they are to where they need to be reliably every single time. The vast majority of people don't care about performance. They don't care even that much about style, to be honest.
I mean, they want something that looks good when they see it. I mean, and that's think what a lot of people purchase big stuff.
I mean, arguably, given how long the Camry has been it was the number one selling car in the U.S. It wasn't, style was not a major part of the equation there. Same goes for the Corolla. Yeah, I mean, they look a lot better now than they used to. But for more than 2 decades, they were pretty bland, and people bought them by the hundreds of thousands every year. So most people don't really care that much about style.
Well, they care in a way where they don't want to stick out too much. Like, I'm not cool enough to be weird, the Homer Simpson thing. Like, they're like, oh, no, I cannot, no. I can't buy a Fiat 500. There's no way I'm going to be seen in that. That's too much. It's too much. But a Camry is like, I need to get where I need to go. I know it's a Toyota, which has, a well-earned reputation for reliability. And it's just sort of blends into the background. It gets me where I need to go. And it's not, and you're going to get some nice gas mileage, that you're going to probably pass it down to your current infant when they turn 17 and they get their license, or 16, and I don't know what the laws are anymore with children, but I don't know, 13. Whenever they give children cars now, you can just give them that car and they'll be fine. It's like a fancy timepiece. It's like a fancy timepiece that you buy and you bestow upon your children. They bestow it upon their children, and finally someone just sells it. It's not that it breaks down.
It just runs forever, and it doesn't use much gas.
I'm tired of this. Let's get something else. Let's get another Camry.
I mean, and that's the case. It's everything works incredibly well in it. Everything from infotainment to just the ergonomics. I mean, they've done a great job of improving it over the years. But you're right. People want a silver car with an automatic transmission that, every time they get in, it's going to start and it gets them there. And if it gets great fuel economy, that's an added bonus. Yeah. And
if gas goes to $7 a gallon, they don't care because, you get 40,
they're getting 40 miles per gallon or whatever it is. Yeah. And, they want to be able to get on the freeway without being, feeling like they're having to pedal harder. And it's, this is one of those cars that, it's surprisingly quick. And, someone who's getting into a car like this for the first time in 15 years because their old Camry finally died, they're going to be blown away. It's, so there's a reason that the Camry is the best-selling passenger car in America, because it does fit that bill, and it's, it's a quality car.
Yeah. Awesome.
It's just, hard to get on board liking a Camry.
Yeah, for us. That's the thing for us.
Well,
I have a
the
BRZ.
outliers.
Like, no one's buying a BRZ in my age. All the young kids are buying BRZs with manual transmissions. That's
right.
That you both have the BRZ for shorter people, which is the Miata.
Exactly.
Right. Well, if you keep the top down, you can be as tall as you want.
Yeah.
You just look over the windshield.
Yeah.
Except if your legs are too long, you still might not fit. Yeah.
There is that.
Yeah. All right. Well, before I went off on my vacation in California with my wife, I had the Honda Ridgeline Trail Sport. So, Honda, like Toyota, has a reputation for quality and reliability, well earned. We've had our Civic now for 7 years, and it's been It's been completely trouble free. I mean, the biggest issues we've had with it is having to replace a couple of tires that got damaged by Michigan potholes. Aside from that, just change the oil once a year, because that's how much my wife drives. Once a year, change the oil, rotate the tires. It's been completely trouble free. If you're looking for something, in any of the other segments that Honda competes in, pretty much everything they build in every segment is similarly trouble free. And in the midsize pickup segment, the Ridgeline is probably that vehicle. The Ridgeline is not the toughest looking truck out there. It doesn't have the most capability of any truck out there. But before Ford launched the Maverick a couple of years ago, we regularly said the Ridgeline is the truck for that most people that want a pickup truck should actually buy. Unless you actually need 10,000 pounds, 14,000 pounds of towing capability, the Ridgeline is the right truck for most people. And even now, it still is the right truck for a lot of people. It is unique in the midsize segment in being a unibody pickup truck. It's based on the Pilot SUV. It's essentially a Pilot with a bed on the back, and instead of a third row. And there's nothing wrong with that. It drives like a Pilot, which is to say, it's uneventful. The ride quality is good. The steering's good. The handling is reasonably good. The Trail Sport is the newest, most off-roady version of the Ridgeline, just as Honda's been introducing Trail Sport versions of the CR-V and the Pilot and the Passport. Now they've got the Ridgeline as well. The second generation Ridgeline, which is what we currently have, looks a little more like a traditional truck than the first generation did. And with the mid-cycle refresh it got a year or so ago, even more so, it's got a little more upright grille on it. Even though it's a unibody, one of the things that Honda designers learned when they went from the first generation, which was a little peculiar looking, to the second generation, it's still a unibody, but they put a fake seam where you would normally have the separation between the cab and the bed on a traditional pickup truck. So there's a what looks like a seam there, and there's a rubber seal in there, but it's actually all one piece of metal underneath there. So there's no actual gap between the bed and the cab. Whatever, so it looks like a truck.
Oh, it looks like it.
Got fake truck beds, fake exhaust pipes, fake everything now.
Yeah, well, no, it's a real truck bed. I mean,
it's a real bed.
1,500 pounds.
No, I agree. It's definitely a real bed. But yes, it's trying to be a
something body different. On frame.
So you got
body on frame trick.
So you got a good sized bed in there. There's also a trunk in the back of the bed. So behind the rear axle, there's a panel that flips up, on the floor of the bed, and gives you a really good size trunk in there with a drain plug in the bottom. And we've in the past, Honda has done events where they've used that for a tailgate. They did a tailgate party at a Detroit Lions game a few years back. Had a couple of Ridgelines filled with ice and drinks, and as the ice drains out or melts, it just drains right out the bottom. So that's handy to have. The cab is very roomy. The back seat, I think, is the roomiest of any of the midsize trucks by a pretty good margin. It's definitely, the back seat is definitely a lot roomier than what you will find in, say, a Toyota Tacoma or a Chevy Colorado, and even the Ranger, which is a little bit. It's quite a bit more roomy than the Tacoma. So if you're looking for something in that mid-sized truck segment, the Ridgeline is actually a really great choice. The 5,000 pound towing capacity is at the low end of the mid-sized trucks. So if you have a bigger boat or a bigger trailer, you might want to look elsewhere, because things like the Ranger, Tacoma, Colorado, they can get up to about 7,500 pounds or so towing. But 5,000 will actually suit a lot of people if you've got a couple of jet skis, if you've got a couple of snowmobiles. 5,000 pounds will handle that without too much problem at all. The Trail Sport, gets you a slight lift. I think it's about a 3/4 inch or 1 inch lift compared to the other Ridgelines, and some all-terrain tires. I think it's General Grabbers were on this one. Yet the same 3.5 liter V6 that's been used in many Honda products for many, many years. 280 horsepower, 262 foot-pounds of torque. Great engine, like similar engines from Toyota. It runs, it'll run forever. Very smooth, very quiet, easy to drive. So the Ridgeline that I had, the Trail Sport, came in at $47,345 all told. And Perry, I don't know if you know, but we have a little tradition here on the show of guessing what the destination charge is on vehicles. So that $47,345 includes the destination charge. So would you like to take a guess at what destination is on the Ridgeline?
Oh, it's like throwing darts. But I'm going to guess $1,250.
Oh, I was going to say that. I'm going to say 1,200.
Perry gets it on the first guess. It's $1,395.
Really?
Yeah.
$1,395.
Yeah.
Once one person went over 1,000, that was it. And that was it for everyone.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back to destination charges later when we talk about the Maverick. So yeah, $1,395, which by today's standards for a truck is actually pretty reasonable. So, the Ford and Ram trucks, they're up to they're like $1,995 now for F-Series or Ram pickups. It's crazy. So we dropped off the Ridgeline at the airport, and when we arrived in San Francisco, some hours later, picked up a Mercedes-Benz EQS 450 Plus SUV. So this is
a little different than the Ridgeline.
Yeah, a little bit different. Not a lot. It's still got 4 wheels, still got 4 doors, steering wheel, pedals. So basically the same.
The basic,
but EQ means it's electric in Mercedes parlance. Excuse me for a second.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, my dogs were getting a little rambunctious here. And so the EQS is the larger of Mercedes' 3 current electric utilities. They've got the EQB, the compact. They've got the midsize EQE, which I talked about a few months ago when I drove that out in California. The EQS is the big one, and it's available as a 3-row. Although the standard configuration is a 2-row. The one we had was essentially the base EQS SUV. So 2 rows only, seating for 5, no third row, which, having looked at it, when we were packing it and, getting our stuff loaded in there, I think I haven't seen it with the third row in there, but I'm guessing the third row is going to be quite tight in this thing. If you have that. So it's really more of a very roomy 2-row utility. But as a 2-row, it's great. There's lots of room in the back seat, lots of cargo space in the back. The 450 Plus says the base model. So it has just rear wheel drive, single motor, and where did that tab go now? It's 339 355 horsepower and 419 foot-pounds of torque, which was more than adequate for driving this thing. It was still plenty quick enough, for anything we wanted to do with it. Last time, 2 weeks ago, when we were on the show, we were talking about passenger side screens. And basically saying how useless we thought they were. Well, this EQS has the Mercedes Hyperscreen in there, which means it's like one big sheet of glass with 3 displays.
Everybody gets a screen.
Yeah, everybody gets a screen. So there's the big 17 and a half inch center infotainment screen with the 0-layer interface. There's the instrument cluster, and then there's one on the passenger side. And in the past, when I've been in cars like the Jeeps that have that passenger screen, and my wife's been sitting in the passenger seat. She's been thoroughly unimpressed. Why would I want this? What's the point of this? Well, she actually started playing with the passenger screen in the EQS and actually found it quite useful.
Oh my gosh! Finally,
she used it, to find radio stations to listen to.
Someone at Mercedes is so excited.
She found the settings for the seats. So she was playing around with the massaging seats from the passenger screen because it was more convenient than leaning over to hit that center screen. A lot more comfortable. So she actually got to like that, except for when we were on a twisty coastal road in California, and she was trying to put something into the navigation, and she found that trying to read stuff or do anything on the screen while the car was going down a curvy California coastal road was not good for her tummy. She almost instantly started feeling a little nauseous with that, which was not great. But then she just stopped, and that all settled down eventually. But she actually did find the passenger screen useful in this instance. The rest of the interior, gorgeous, beautifully finished, fantastic materials. Really love the outboard vents on these things. These vents, they're circular vents that look like the entry, the front end of a jet engine. So they've got the blades, they're kind of curved like modern jet engine fans. And then the little cone in the middle that you grab to adjust it and turn and you twist it to open and close the vent. Just the way it should be. You do it with your hand on the actual vent, not going through a touchscreen. Yes, you don't have to touch the
what a concept
to redirect the airflow.
Every time I use the vents in the car, which is a lot.
Yes.
I'm like constantly moving the vents. I think about how much I'm constantly moving the vents.
Yeah, actually, on the Autopian a few days ago, Jason Torchinsky wrote a great op-ed piece. I'll link it in the show notes about what a stupid idea it is to have vents that are controlled through a touchscreen. That it is just a ridiculous thing. Mercedes-Benz, thank you so much for not doing that.
Thank you, Mercedes.
We appreciate
It's still the norm. At least it's still the norm.
Yeah. It is the norm, and it should stay the norm forever.
I think it's one of those things people thought was a good. There's an Auto Pacific research thingy that they did, and there was all the top 10 features. None of them had anything to do with vents.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like bringing back the volume control. I mean, Honda thought, it's a good idea. Let's get rid of the volume control knob, and it's back now.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will also be a continuing trend.
At bringing it back too.
They were.
Civic, they were just like, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they had taken it away on the Fit and the Civic,
right?
And they got so many complaints about it, including from us, because our Civic, that is one design flaw of our Civic, is that it has the touch screen, the touch volume control. So a year after they launched the 10th generation Civic, they brought out a new CRV, and they had heard the complaints from the Civic and the Fit, and I was at the event here in Detroit where they unveiled the then new CRV, and he said, and it has a volume knob, and everybody in the room cheered.
Yeah,
it was great.
It's the little things.
I drove a Type R to visit family over a Christmas holiday, and everything about that car was amazing except for what is why I'm just getting irritated by it, and then no knobs
work.
It's not that complicated.
Yeah,
complicated.
And I don't want to go off on vents yet again, but it's actually more
vents again.
It's actually more complicated to do it through the touchscreen, because you have to build in motors and actuators inside the dashboard to redirect the flaps for the airflow.
No,
it's cheaper to do it with just manual vent controls.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And enough of vents. The EQS we had was finished in the emerald green metallic, which is a fantastic color. It's a dark green, and as long as the car is clean, it looks fantastic, especially in the sun. After a few days of driving around, kind of dry, dusty Northern California, it was a little less exciting, but it's still really nice. The macchiato beige interior was also fantastic. Love the open pore wood finishes. Charging in that part of California, like once you head north of San Francisco, as long as you stay close to 101, you can find charging pretty much, every few miles, not a problem. As soon as you head more than a few miles east or west of the freeway, you begin to understand why people in rural parts of America think the idea of EVs is stupid, because there is no public charging anywhere. Like we were in Sonoma, in western Sonoma County, and there's almost no charging anywhere. Even the house we were staying in this time didn't have an outdoor outlet that was close to where the car was parked. And the last time we were out there, at least I could reach it with the charge cord in the car. So I actually had to go find the general store and buy an extension cord so I could reach the thing to plug it in. But before we headed west from Santa Rosa, we stopped to grab some groceries at the Whole Foods, and there's a EVgo charging station there, which I'd used previously. And that the first charger I plugged it into, the charger seemed to be working, but it couldn't communicate with the car for some reason and would not initiate the charge. So I moved it over and plugged it into another charger when somebody else left, and it worked fine. So that at that time I had like 75% state of charge, and it got to like 98% in like 25 minutes, which,
cool.
When you're already at that, or did I say 20? In about 15 minutes, I should say. It was 25 minutes. Yeah. So it, it actually charged surprisingly fast. And then on the way back, we stopped off there as well, before we drove back south to San Francisco. And from about 45% state of charge, it got up to 85, in about 15 minutes. And it was charging about 9,500 kilowatts the whole time. So the charging works quite well. It's nominally rated at 200 kilowatts maximum charge rate. If you're at the lower end of state of charge, it'll do that. Let's see what else. Overall, the EQS was really nice to drive. It's on the wide side for some of these twisty roads, so you got to be careful. But the rear wheel steering is a nice feature to have when you're maneuvering in a tight parking lot. And the only kind of complaint I would have is in the comfort mode. The suspension, air spring suspension all around. It's probably a little softer than I would like, and you felt a little bit wallowy. But when I put it in sport mode, it tightened it up and it's much nicer to drive. So really enjoyed driving the EQS for a week, and had a lot of fun with it.
Cool. Yeah, that rear steering. Once you have a big vehicle with the rear steering, then you're like, why do people even make big cars with that rear steering?
Yeah, I know.
Especially when you're trying to get through a parking lot or park into a parking space, it works nice.
And especially on EVs, because on EVs, even within the same overall length of vehicle, because of the nature of EVs, they tend to move the wheels up closer to the corners. Take advantage of the fact that you don't need as much mechanical stuff on the overhangs, and so you end up having a longer wheelbase, relative to the size of the car for any size of EV. And so that longer wheelbase normally means you're going to have a bigger turning circle, but with the rear wheel steering, it, offsets that.
Yeah. Ioniq 5 turning circle is much larger than our Kona EV's turning circle.
Yeah. Interestingly, okay. So total price listed on the Monroney, $114,250. Guesses on the destination charge?
Ooh, $995.
I'm gonna say I'm gonna stick with my $1,250.
Shockingly, on this Monroney, it says 0.
Yay, free!
It was
Wait,
a
hold
free
on.
car.
Hold on. Maybe let me look up the EQS I had the other week. Is that free still?
That can't be right.
I don't think it is. I suspect it's because this one was delivered to Mercedes, for their press fleet. So I'm not sure why it says, but I mean, 0 is what it says on the Monroney. So Mercedes, I guess, didn't charge itself anything for delivery.
Those crazy bastards.
I think normally it's $9.95.
So the most
loading
recent
it up.
Mercedes I had, which was a CLE 450, was $11.50
Okay.
destination.
All right, let's see. EQS 450V. I had the regular. Monroney. It's probably gonna say. 1150 was the
1150.
EQS.
That must be what they're going with now.
And what was your guess, Perry? You said $12.50,
I said $12.50. So
and
Yeah,
Robbie
so
said
you won. I said 995.
Okay, so yeah, you were closer, Perry.
Okay.
We used to play by Price is Right rules, closest without going
if I went over, I'm over.
And
Yeah.
but then listeners suggested we change it to just whoever's closest.
Because whoever answered second usually won.
Yeah.
She's like $1. Or you say which one? 996.
Since I didn't know about this fun little game, did you want to try and guess the destination on the Camry?
Oh, 1295.
I'm gonna say 1095.
$10.95 on the money.
Oh,
Exactly what it was.
Damn.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right.
So there you go.
All right.
Now we have to send him this week's pay when he gets the random thing. Sorry, Perry. We didn't tell you that.
No one tells me anything.
You have to-
Okay. So, I talked about the Ridgeline. We used to recommend that as the best truck for most people. And the last couple of years, the Ford Maverick has been the obvious choice there because it was so cheap and offered so much for the money. And for 2025, the Maverick is getting its first mid-cycle update. It's no longer such a great value.
It's a huge jump from okay, so it started at 1995 or 1996, something like that. Now it's
it was $20,000. My neighbors bought theirs. They got theirs in January of 2022, very early one. They got it for $20,000 plus the delivery, which I think was like $1,200 at the time.
And then for a car that inexpensive, the amount of money, the cost jump, like percentage wise, is so huge. Now it starts at $26,295, so it's over $6,000 more for something that started at $20,000.
And the delivery charge is up to $1,595.
So 15. So now you're paying $2,800 or $28,000 for your Maverick.
So you have to wonder when they came out with the one at $19,995 or whatever. I mean, it certainly got the Maverick on the map. And I don't know if you want to call it a loss leader or whatever. I mean, there weren't many at that price anyway, but it's still, I mean, yes, it's considerably more than it was, no question. It's still, you get a lot of truck for the money.
Yeah.
It's certainly more expensive. I don't know that it's not still a decent value.
Yeah. I mean, it is, it's still by today's standards, $28,000 is still a decent value. It's just not the kind of value it was 2 years ago.
It feels like a bait and switch because people still think it's a $20,000 car because it was such a big deal when it came out. They're like, oh, and then they go into the dealership now and they're like, wait, where's the $20,000 one? They're like, well, a few years ago, Ford started doing what Tesla does, and that is just like going crazy with pricing.
Well, they realized so many dealers were charging $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 markups on those $20,000 pickups. They said, wait, why are we letting the dealers do that? Let's take that money for ourselves. Yeah. That's basically what it came down to. They realized they underpriced it.
Still a really good truck.
Because I don't think Ford ever expected it to be as popular as it was.
That's the other crazy thing is that they didn't realize because people would come up to me, they're like, I just want a small truck. I'm like, well, you can get a Tacoma. They're like, no, a small truck.
Yeah.
I mean, there was Santa Cruz. That was pretty much the closest thing.
Yeah, Santa Cruz and Maverick are the only two in that segment. I mean, they're basically the same size. And the Santa Cruz was always more expensive. I mean, the Santa Cruz was always priced like this. It always started at like $27,000, and it didn't offer a hybrid. So it was not nearly as fuel efficient. So at least now, even with the price increase, which I think averages from 2024 to 25 model year, I think the price increase averages about $2,400. At least now they've gone back to making the hybrid standard instead of
that's good. You don't have to pay
optional.
extra for it.
Yeah.
Well, that and now you can get it with all-wheel drive.
That is the big functional change.
That's the big.
Finally get the hybrid all-wheel drive, which is still supposed to get 40 miles per gallon. The front-wheel drive is going to get like 42 and 40 for the all-wheel drive hybrid. So now you can do a little more with the hybrid and still get great fuel economy.
Although according to their price list, and I don't know if this is all inclusive or if it's going to change, the only way to get the hybrid all-wheel drive is to go up to the Lariat. And
is it?
That starts at $36,000.
Ooh, that's not good. I haven't seen the full price list.
So that in the price list, so basically the lowest price is the XL hybrid front-wheel drive, $26,295. That's not including the $1,595 destination. Then you go up to XLT hybrid. Then, interestingly enough, on the Lariat, the hybrid is more expensive than the EcoBoost. So it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Lariat hybrid all-wheel drive is actually the only trim at the moment you can get the hybrid all-wheel drive system.
Oh, that sucks.
So I don't know if that will change as they go forward, but that's based on the most recent price list that they sent out.
What do you think about the styling changes?
I like it.
I thought it looked
like it before.
More,
Okay.
I think it gives it a bit more of a modern look, and it looks a bit more like F-150, which isn't a bad thing, I don't think.
Yeah,
I mean, I kind of like the original look, but and they have this awesome new color, this eruption green, which apparently is for one model year only. So if you want eruption green, you have to get a 2025.
Get it now.
Yeah.
All right. So I just I went to the build a Maverick thingy.
Do they have?
And you can
they have the 25.
I don't think they have the 25.
Yeah, the 2025 builder is available.
Oh, I went and looked up there. I didn't see it.
Yeah, so it's so you can get the hybrid with the all-wheel drive. It's $2,200 more with the XL.
Oh,
so that's the one to get. And then just skip all the other things except for spray and bed, and then you can get that nice $30,000 Maverick for the XL. Whew. How much is spray and bed? It says nothing. What? Anyway. You can. We'll see what Hyundai. Now Hyundai has to come back with something. See what they do.
Well, they did. They've got a refreshed Maverick or refreshed Santa Cruz for 2025 model year as well, but it still doesn't have a hybrid option. So,
which is surprising because it seems like they could.
Yeah. I mean, given that it's based on the Tucson platform, and the Tucson, comes as a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid, you should be able to find some way to package the battery in that truck.
Oh, they make it they make that thing a plug-in hybrid.
Yeah,
it's gonna be.
That would be pretty cool.
Pretty nice.
The other changes to the new Maverick are in the interior. So it's now got the larger 13.2 inch infotainment screen. So basically, Ford is standardizing around this 13-inch screen. They're putting it in everything because it's in the new Explorer. It's in the Maverick. It's in the F-150. I think they want to just simplify it down to one screen, which is probably better for them.
It's interesting though. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Maverick is not coming with the new infotainment system though. It still has Sync.
Right. Well, it's Sync 4, so it doesn't have the new Android Automotive system. Yeah, that'll probably they probably need to do more upgrades to the electronic architecture to support that, which they haven't done here because this is just a mid-cycle update. But at least they're using the same display as on the other ones. And then they've also they're also adding some other tech like Pro Trailer Backup Assist. And I guess they upgraded the towing capability because previously the hybrids had only 2,000 pound tow rating, and then the EcoBoost had 4,000 pounds. Now it's 4,000 pounds across the board on everything but the Tremor and the new Lobo trim level. And they have that Pro Trailer backup assist, which if you don't do a lot of towing, it can be handy. What do you think about the new Lobo version?
It looks cool.
Yeah.
I
mean,
I like the idea of I like the idea of a sport truck anyway, and that's kind of what this is. It's it's interesting that they're kind of trying to emulate the street truck, which I don't know how many people are aware of the street trucks, but it still looks cool.
I think probably
if we had Mini Truckin' Magazine around still, then we would know more about street. That's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is bring back Mini Truckin' Magazine.
Well, it's got this this turbofan wheel design, that was pretty common on a lot of race cars back in the 1980s and early 90s. They've gone away from, and then so the Lobo, it's EcoBoost only. They've lowered it down by about an inch, and then it's got the all-wheel drive system from the Bronco Sport, which has the twin clutch rear differential, so they can do torque vectoring. But they're using it. It's the same hardware, but they're using it with different software on the Maverick. So they're using it for performance instead of for maximizing traction like they do on the Bronco Sport. But the Lobo is not coming till sometime next year, sometime in 2025.
Although they do have it in the configurator on the site.
Lobo it up.
Oh, yeah. There it is.
What it's worth.
Starting at $40,495 for the Lobo.
Or you can just get the XL and paint it the color you want, and then put the rims you want.
You'd have to get the cool wheels and the different grill and
even the Tremor is $39,795 now. So $40,000 for the Tremor. A lot of money for a Maverick.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't get the XL.
Yeah.
Steely's all-wheel drive hybrid.
Absolutely.
Still $30,000 when I did it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right. Next up, Audi A6 e-tron. Have you guys looked at this thing? What do you think of the new A6? A6 is going electric only for this new generation.
It seems, everybody was heading that way. Now maybe they're not, but I think it looks cool.
Yeah. So the A6, at least in for the rest of the world, they get two body styles. They've got the Sportback, kind of like the A7 was before, and the Avant wagon. I doubt we'll get the wagon here in the U.S.
Ooh.
Although we didn't think we'd get our 6 Avant either, so anything
that's true.
Anything could happen.
But that car, I love that vehicle. So when I drove it, man, I had people coming up to me. I had cops coming up to me about it, not for like the reasons you think, just because they saw while I was taking photos, not because I was driving like a maniac. So yeah, an A6 electric A6 Avant, that would be dope.
Yeah, so this is built on the new PPE platform that Audi and Porsche co-developed. So this is the same platform that's being used for the Macan EV and also for the Q6 e-tron. Yes, Q6, right?
Okay.
Yeah, Q6 e-tron. So, Q6 e-tron is basically the SUV version of this. I like the design overall. And it's supposed to have a range of, it'll be a WLTP range of something like 460 miles, I think, 450 miles, which means it'll be probably somewhere in the 350 to 375 EPA, which would be a huge boost from what they currently have on the existing Q8 e-tron.
Yeah, it's got 800 volt. It's an 800 volt architecture. It charges up to 270 kilowatts, and because it's 800 volts, that means it'll charge closer to that during most of the charging cycle. So that's pretty dope.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how well it's received. As they, like Mercedes had said, we're going all electric by 2030, and now they've officially said we're not going all electric by 2030. And BMW has taken their own track of basically creating electric and gas versions of the exact same cars. So it'll be interesting to see as Audi's clearly going, at least in this level or this class of car, getting rid of the gas and going electric.
Yeah, I mean, Volvo's also backed off on the all electric commitment. They said they're going to continue to do some hybrids and plug-in hybrids for the foreseeable future. So, yeah, I think Audi's still introducing new internal combustion models. They just launched the new A5 and S5 a few weeks ago. So I think we'll probably see a new gas A7 at some point in the next couple of years, and maybe an A8, or maybe, because I think they're going with even numbers for the EVs and odd numbers for the internal combustion models. So
interesting way of doing it.
Yeah, getting just trying to confuse people even more. One of the interesting details when I was reading the release on this, they're using an Android Automotive infotainment system, but they're not using Google Automotive Services. So they're going the same path as Stellantis. So they'll have their own app store on there where you can download certain Android apps. Like you'll be able to get YouTube and various other apps that you can download on this thing. But you won't have Google Maps. I think they're continuing to use Here Maps and various other services. They've got their own voice assistant instead of Google Assistant. And I think Mercedes is doing the same thing next year with the new MMA platform as well. So it'd be interesting to see how well that works. Given that VW's Cariad unit is supposed to be responsible for all that software, and Cariad hasn't had a great reputation so far.
Well, now they got the Rivians to take care of them
to
save them.
Yeah, maybe Rivian will fix it.
Yeah,
perhaps.
All right. So BBS, Recaro, two of the legendary brands for performance vehicles in the 1980s and 90s and into the 2000s. BBS has made wheels for many, many decades. Recaro seats, famous for forever. The last week, both of them have declared bankruptcy.
Oof.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
Like people, OEMs use Recaro seats. Like, what are they? Were they snapped up by a private equity firm?
Recaro was. I'm not sure about BBS. Recaro was bought by, because Recaro was it was spun off from it had been owned by Johnson Controls. Johnson Controls spun off their interiors unit, their seating business, and then that business, which Adient, I think it was, they sold off Recaro to a private equity firm, and that's usually the kiss of death for any business.
It is, because they buy it and they throw the debt of buying the company onto the company.
Yeah.
Right, because you're right. I mean, there are a number of OEMs that have Recaro seats in their cars, which you would think would be a pretty lucrative
Ford,
deal
BMW,
for Recaro.
Porsche. Many OEMs use Recaro seats in various models.
BBS wheels seem more aftermarket than Recaro would be, but
that's a bummer.
It also is surprising that a company that was so big for so long, is it just nobody's buying them anymore? Are the OEM wheels looking so cool that you don't need to buy BBS wheels now?
Does BBS make wheels for like the Brodozer trucks? Because that's all they really need to do. It's just make giant shiny wheels for the trucks that never do truck things.
Yeah,
that's what BBS needs to get into.
Yeah, make 30-inch wheels for the aftermarket, and then they'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right. Enough of that bad news. On to Tesla and FSD. You know, I'm not a fan of Tesla's approach to assisted and automated driving. I think they've been reckless and irresponsible and negligent. Back in April, a driver in Seattle was using FSD in his Model S and struck and killed a motorcyclist in broad daylight. Admitted to the cops that, yep, he was using FSD, the full self-driving, which is not actually full self-driving. And
Really?
he was looking at his phone, doing something on his phone when the car just plowed into a motorcyclist, killed the motorcyclist. He's been charged with negligent homicide. The intended driver of the Tesla, that is, has been
The one who
charged.
was supposed to be driving.
Yes.
Yes.
The one who didn't pay attention, didn't follow the rules, and did not keep his hands on the wheel and eyes on the road. He's been charged with negligent homicide. They have confirmed that the car was in fact, that FSD was in fact engaged at the time of the crash. And then there was also another crash that I just found out about where another Tesla struck and killed a motorcyclist in California. It was actually about a year ago. And that one was an autopilot rather than FSD. But not that there's a whole lot of difference between the two anymore.
Yeah.
But that one, the family of the victim is suing Tesla for a product liability suit, for negligent product. So hopefully they'll win that one.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it just makes, if you're in a car that you're doing what the system says it's supposed to do and the system malfunctions, yeah, the guy should have been paying attention. But if he's told that this is a system where you don't have to pay attention, because eventually we're going to get to the point that there'll be more, that perhaps, hopefully are tested better and are more functional. But if you're in a vehicle that the instructions say you don't have to pay attention anymore, and you don't because it said you don't have to, and it's something, whose fault is it?
Well, I mean, Tesla does specifically say, when you start autopilot or FSD, that you as the driver are responsible at all times. You have to keep your hands on the wheel, eyes on the road. The problem is, unlike systems like Super Cruise or Blue Cruise, they don't really do anything to make sure the driver actually is doing that.
Yeah, there's no in-car.
The systems do say that you have to do all this.
Yes, they do. They do say that, and that's how Tesla has mostly gotten away with this up until now, by using those weasel words and saying, "Yep, you're responsible. We're not taking any responsibility. Use it at your own risk." And unfortunately, because of the branding on those things, and because of the way that Musk himself has talked about this for the last decade, and being on TV, with his hands off the wheel, not looking at the road, people say, "Oh, well, if Elon can do it, then I should be able to do that." It says autopilot, it says it'll drive itself. Why should I pay attention? And it doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's difficult to, because motorcycles, because they're narrower, it's difficult to determine like the depth, like how close you are to one. That's one of the issues when you ride motorcycles. Well, when you're riding, because especially a lot of motorcycles get rear-ended because people don't realize how close they are to them because it's not as wide. So you're, even stereoscopic vision, which is, how our eyes work, you can still sort of like misjudge that. So,
and Tesla doesn't have stereo cameras.
Yeah. So if you don't have that extra, that dual vision, it's hard to determine how far a motorcycle is. And it's one of the reasons why I'm happy that California allows lane splitting, because you're constant. When I'm at a stoplight or a stop sign, I'm constantly looking in that rearview mirror for that person who isn't judging how close I am to the vehicle, and also terrified whenever I see Teslas, because when you're in a motorcycle, you're up above everyone. You can look down and you see people are just they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing behind the wheel, which is terrifying when you're riding a motorcycle. So,
yeah. So, keep your hands on the wheel, eyes on the road, especially if you drive a Tesla, but really any vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing out there right now that you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So one thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Mercedes EQS earlier, my wife and I were walking through a parking lot. We'd gone for a hike in the Armstrong Redwoods Preserve, and we were walking back to the car. The car parked next to the Mercedes. My wife mistook it for the Mercedes. She thought, she went over, walked up to the car, and actually opened the passenger door, not realizing it was not the Mercedes. It was a Mazda CX-90. So
That's a little different, but was it the same color?
I've almost gotten
close.
into the wrong car.
Yeah, it was like, it was a dark color, and with the they were parked in the shade, so you couldn't really, and the green, the emerald green on the Mercedes is so dark, and it was also a little dust covered. So it was actually not that hard to mistake the two. And both similar shape, SUVs, similar size. And she walked up and opened the door and saw the person in the driver's seat and realized, oh, sorry, wrong car. And then walked.
So is that a bigger compliment to the Mazda or the Mercedes?
To the Mazda, I think.
To the Mazda.
Yeah, because she thought it looked like a Mercedes.
Good job, Mazda.
Yeah. So, Stellantis had been having some challenges this year.
Hold on. We talked about this last week.
This year?
Did we? Oh, did you? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
we talked about this.
Never mind. Moving on. The Mustang Mach-E, they're adding a new over-the-air performance upgrade option for the Mach-E this year. For you can get an extra 100 foot-pounds of torque. You can purchase through the Ford Pass app. I'm not sure how much it is though.
$995?
It says $995.
Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah. So that'll drop the 0 to 60 time for the Mach-E GT from 3.8 to 3.3 seconds. I don't know.
That's a healthy jump.
No.
$1,000? Do you really need to be going that fast?
I'm gonna say no. Well, here's the thing: is that as in the '90s, we would pay like $300 to put a new muffler on our vehicle, and then another $150 to put a new air intake, and then another $400 for a header. So you spend all this money and you get like 12 extra horsepower. So maybe it is worth it.
Instead, you just write a check and presto, you've got.
Actually, you don't even need to write a check because you can do it in the.
That's
Ford
true.
Pass
It just
app.
takes the money.
Just a couple of taps, boom, you got an extra 100 foot-pounds.
Yeah, so maybe it is.
It is kind of bizarre.
And first I said no. Now I'm like, well, I put all those things on my Civic and into my Del Sol, and they added like 6 horsepower.
So the bigger question is, if you do it and then you realize, oh, this is scary, I don't want it, can you get rid of it?
I suspect you can get rid of it. I don't think you get your money back though.
I figured they should give you like 30 days. Like, let me try this out for 30 days. If I don't like it,
right?
Because it's they just they just turn it off on your car, and then
Yeah, I mean,
maybe.
It's an interesting thing.
Have it as a subscription. $10 a month, or $20 a month as a subscription. Take it for a month. See if you like it. If not, just cancel the subscription.
Yeah. We got so many subscriptions though.
Subscription acceleration.
There you go.
Acceleration.
Yeah, and to be fair, Ford is not the first company to do this. Tesla's offered upgrades like this in the past.
I think
Mercedes
has done that too.
Yeah, and Mercedes offers a power upgrade on the EQ models. I think on the EQS and maybe the EQE to get you an extra. I think it's probably similar, like 100 foot-pounds or something, or maybe even 100 horsepower more through through the app.
The interesting thing is, can the average consumer tell the difference between going 0 to 60 in 3.8 versus 3.3? Because 3.8 is pretty fast.
I would say 99.9% of them cannot tell the difference.
Yeah, that's sort of a big deal too.
But I suppose it's bragging rights.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like the average person doesn't feel the difference of their vehicle when they get an oil change. I think, like as soon as that oil is changed, like you're like, oh yeah, I can feel that. The average person doesn't. They're like, no. The average person
feel that engine revving a little smoother, a little.
Yeah, it's just like such a small little thing, and you're like, oh yeah, I feel that. I know that.
It's so happy now.
It's a little more, so happy. Just that little bit more responsive when you step on the accelerator.
But I think most people wouldn't even notice that.
Yeah. No. So Ineos, the the company making knockoff Land Rover Defenders with BMW engines, is apparently they're rethinking their product strategy. They already paused development of their electric model about a month or so ago, and now they're saying that instead of trying to expand their product lineup with cheaper models, they're going to kind of take the path of the Mercedes G-Class, the G-Wagon, and focus on more upscale models. They're trying to get the buyers with lots of money to give them even more money. So apparently, the quote in the story from Autocar: the main feedback from dealers is that the Grenadier is too cheap.
It's too cheap.
It needs to be more expensive for the amount of car you get. George Radcliffe, commercial director of Ineos, told Autocar they want to sell it for more.
All right, well,
fine.
It feels like that's the market that's buying these vehicles. To be honest.
Right, but it's a limited market. I mean, eventually, that's kind of the problem. Lucid runs into, and any of them that start out with a really expensive vehicle is eventually. I mean, that pipeline fills up much faster.
Yeah,
there's fewer people that can do it, and if they can make a profit at doing that and make a business out of that, that's great. But that gets to be, it's hard to make it up with volume because you're not going to do as much volume.
Yeah. Right. But what they're looking for is I think they realize that there is a limited demand for vehicles like this to begin with. And so rather than trying to expand the volume, they're going to expand the margins on the ones that they do sell. So they've got this Arcane Works personalization service that lets you create bespoke Grenadiers. You can pick your colors and all kinds of other accessories and features on this thing. Let's see, I think it looks like the starting price for the Arcane Works version of the Grenadier in the UK is £134,000, which is about $160,000 US dollars right now.
That's because you can get the wagon for 75 right now.
Yeah,
which I drove it a few weeks ago, a month ago. I don't know. I don't understand how time works. But I drove the Grenadier and the what is it, the Quartermaster, and if you go all in on it, it's great. If you're cool with that steering, if you understand what you're getting into, it's outstanding. You're like, this is awesome. But if you're like, I'm going to get this car and expect it to drive like my RAV4, it's less awesome.
Yeah.
But for enthusiasts, it's outstanding. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Oh, I'm making a turn on a freeway. Oh God.
Or coming out of a turn. Why isn't the steering wheel going back to where it started from?
Yeah. You're just constantly moving the steering wheel around. If you're fine not going faster than 70 miles an hour in your new car, you're fine. You'll be great. You'll have the best time in this vehicle. Yeah. There's so many buttons and stuff. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, there's lots of switches. It's like the opposite of a Rivian in that respect. Instead of everything being in the touchscreen, everything is on. You've got all kinds of panels of buttons and switches and toggles. Buttons. It's great. It's awesome.
It's like you're in a jet. You're doing a pre-check before you drive.
It's like flying a 747.
Yep. Someone comes in, gives you a coffee, sees how you're doing.
I'm ready to leave. Any hour now, I'll be ready to leave.
All right. The Toyota GR Corolla, since it launched a couple of years ago, it has been available exclusively with a 6-speed manual gearbox. Not anymore. Now, for 2025, they are adding an automatic transmission. It is they call it the direct shift, or the direct automatic transmission. It was developed by the crew at Gazoo Racing. And it's not entirely clear what exactly that means, what direct automatic transmission means. But it's there. It's not a DCT. I know that much. But it's an 8-speed, and they've also increased the torque from 274 to 295 foot-pounds. So you got a little more torque, still the same 300 horsepower, and it should be a hoot to drive in either form.
It'd be interesting to see what it does. I mean, obviously opening up to some more people that want performance stuff out of that manual.
Will it be like 50-50? Will it be...
I'm guessing it's probably going to be more like 65% automatic.
Really? I feel
I,
like
I
this
think so.
vehicle is going to be it's still going to be a lot of manual people.
Sad but true.
Because the person who's looking at this car is a hardcore enthusiast. These are people who, like, I tell regular people about this car and they have no idea what I'm talking about. I tell enthusiasts about this car and they're like, "Oh my god!" I'm
Well,
like,
so
"Dude,
just
it's
say
bonkers."
Corolla. People are going to say, well, why would I want
Right,
that?
Corolla, their eyes
Yeah.
glaze over. Yeah.
Why would I want to spend $40,000 on a Corolla?
It's the best $40,000 you're going to spend on a car. Is what I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you. It's bonkers. It's so much fun.
Except the Morizo, unless you want a track car. If you want a car that's primarily a track car, the Morizo is great. Otherwise, just get the regular GR Corolla.
Yeah, just get the regular one. Just slow your roll a little bit.
Just slightly.
Just a scooch. Just a scooch.
Yeah, they also made some tweaks to the suspension settings to improve traction during hard cornering. They added rebound springs to the front and rear suspension, suppressed wheel lift, and I think somewhere I saw they're saying for the automatic is for drivers that are not so much interested in shifting, that want to focus on the handling and driving dynamics of the car.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. I'll still take the 6-speed. Thank you.
Yeah.
It is a lot of fun to drive. All right. And then, either of you two ever see the Electromechanica Solo?
I've seen them. I've never been in one, but I've seen one.
I sat in one at CES.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when they had one at CES in like 2019 or 20, I think it was 19. They had it at the Showstoppers event at CES, and that was when Jeff Holland was still repping them before he moved on to Mitsubishi and then now to VinFast. And so they had one on display there, and I plopped myself down in the thing, sat in it. It's like, yeah, okay, this kind of could be kind of interesting. Yeah, it's a single seat 3-wheeler, 100-mile electric range. Apparently did not sell very well. I think they sold about 400 of them. And then there was an issue with them. I think it was with the brakes. No, it would just there was reports that they would just suddenly they would lose power and it would just shut down.
Right.
That sounds bad.
Yeah. And so,
kind of breaks.
Yeah, that could be problematic. And so they recalled them all. There was 429 that were sold. They recalled them all and then eventually just bought them back. Interestingly, I had missed this. Electromechanica had been acquired by Exos, which was a company that's been trying to build electric heavy-duty trucks. And
the opposite of a Solo.
Yes. And so I'm not sure why they decided they needed to buy Electromechanica, but they did. And so they ended up buying back all the Solos, and now they're all sitting in a wrecking yard in Arizona. And somebody spotted them. There's a photo here on the Autopian of these cars just sitting in a pile,
it's
waiting
a little
to be
sad.
crushed. Yeah.
So they have I'm looking at, they have these like little 17.3 kilowatt hour battery packs.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you get like 2 of those. I just feel like every time I see like, oh, these EVs, they're now in a thing. I'm like, the Restomad people should be down there just like pulling these battery packs out of these things as quickly as possible.
I suspect the battery packs have already been pulled if they're getting ready to crush
who
these
cares
things.
then?
I would hope so if they're sitting there in the junkyard there. But.
Yeah, I mean, I would not want to think of several hundred of these cars sitting in this pile. I mean, literally, just they've just been thrown in a pile. It's like it's like your kids' toys, thrown in a pile in the corner, or your dog toys, And I would hope that the batteries are not still in these things if they're the way these things are sitting in this pile.
Man,
crazy.
I want someone to go check.
Yeah.
Whoever lives in Arizona. Wait, hold on. There's a pull and save in Gilbert, Arizona. Go check.
Yeah. So
if there's batteries in those things, get someone who's knows what they're doing.
Yeah. And then pull the battery.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a friend who worked at Tesla and now works at Lucid. So whenever I'm like, I think about Resto Mod, the first thing I do is reach out to him. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
so
Okay. Um, and then Perry, I guess last week you or maybe the week before you
I
participated
think it was the
in
week
an
before.
event. Tell us
Yeah,
about it.
so it's an unusual event for a manufacturer, but it's called Mini Takes the States. And so if you are a Mini owner, you are invited. It's actually put on by Mini North America, and it's basically a road rally. They do it every 2 years, and it's for only for Mini owners or people who find a Mini to drive. And they do a cross country trip. Depends on every time it's different. This year they went from Albuquerque to Seattle, and it's I think they said almost 2,000 Mini owners participated, drove 1,600 miles, and there were around 900 Minis, I believe, that actually almost 1,000 Minis that drove through the whole thing.
cool.
And so Mini invited me out. I got to drive the 2025 Cooper S, the brand new one, which was great. And unfortunately, speaking of manuals, they don't offer one anymore. But it's very sad. But that's a different story. But all these people bring their customized Minis. I mean, everything from stock, vintage Minis to Countrymen's to everything. There's some that are set up for proper off-roading. And these people all gather every morning on the entire trip, and they called it Camp Mini, and it was exactly like that. And talking to some of these folks, they said that for the week it was almost like an escape from reality. Nobody talked politics. They said they didn't even talk sports teams. All they talked about was the Minis and their dogs, because there were countless dogs there as well.
Oh,
And
dogs
so
and minis.
it's the Mini makes you smile anyway, and add some puppies into the mix, and it's a bunch of happy people. And it was crazy driving. I drove from Spokane to Yakima, then Yakima to Seattle, and you'd stop for lunch, and every single restaurant would have like a dozen Minis in the parking lot. And for some, and they don't announce it or anything, and so people driving by, it's like, what is going on here? There were people that came into the Rise and Rally event that they'd have every morning, and just looking around at it, it's just like, imagine seeing 700 or 800 Minis all parked in rows in a park. It's and then by 10 o'clock in the morning, it's all gone. Everybody's on the road again. And
What was the mix
unique.
like between classic Minis and modern Minis?
It's mostly newer Minis, probably. I mean, the new Mini, when they came back again in 2000 or 2002, whenever it was. But a lot of new ones. In fact, there were a couple of the brand new Countrymen that people had bought right before they went on this event. In fact, there were some that I heard that was the reason they bought a Mini, was because they'd heard about this event and wanted to participate. So it's a very interesting marketing method, but it really kind of shows Mini as being more than just a car. It's kind of a culture. I try to refrain from saying cult, but it did feel like that in some cases, because these people, they're wearing Mini outfits with Mini stuff, and everybody's handing out Mini pins that they've created specific for their cars, and it's just a big Mini festival. And so they do it every 2 years, and they've been doing it, I think, since I'm trying to remember how long ago it was, but I think this was the 6th or 7th one that they've done. And this was my 3rd one that I've attended, and it's just a blast. These people are like the friendliest people you meet, and they're all very happy to be there.
Cool. I've been invited to this thing a bunch of times and I can never do it. And now you're making me sad.
It's worth it. Well, you have 2 years to figure out your next one, because they do it every
It'll
2
be
years.
interesting in 2 years because they'll have the SE electric out, because by that point they'll be built in the UK, and so it'll be interesting to see more electric vehicles on this.
Which of course adds its own complication to it when you're doing a rally of 300 to 500 miles a day.
I know. With a lot of electric vehicles, they're like, okay, everybody, we're going to charge. Well, if you look at the thing, I'm looking at the routes. They're like 140, 260. The Spokane to Yakima, that's pushing it. 260, Yeah, these are just these are right on the
It
on
would
the
be
230.
doable, but then you've also got to charge when you get there too.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like,
yeah,
okay,
I think
everybody.
You know,
I think at that point they'll have to, because they do, it's a different route every time. So I think at that
Right.
point they'll have to make sure that they pick a route where that there's enough known chargers along the way that it won't be too much of a hassle for people.
They'll just
But
drive
you're
around
right,
in
in 2
circles
years-
in my neighborhood.
yeah, it'll all be from from one side of your house to the other. That's the whole route.
Yeah.
But in 2 years, I mean, that's a long time in the industry. I mean, just to, by that time, Mini may have decided to not go electric anymore. They may have, or
Cancel
they
all
may
their
have just
EVs.
bought their own charging system, and you've got Mini chargers all over the place. Who knows?
Maybe they'll go back to diesel.
Exactly.
finally.
Yes. With manual transmissions.
Yeah.
Man, transmissions. They're all brown.
Yeah.
But of course,
The only Minis available will be Clubman's with a manual transmission and diesel and painted brown.
right.
Yeah.
The auto journalist special.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, it's if for anybody who does have a Mini though, it's certainly worth looking into because it's something it's unlike any other manufacturer does.
Is there any
there's lots
charge to participate? Or
There is a charge but you get goodie bags. They serve you breakfast every morning. They do, so there's events that go along with it. And the final event in the evening in Seattle, they had a big get together at the Seattle Air Museum. And so it was kind of cool to go. There's a kind of a control tower, to show you what a control tower looks like. It looks out on the parking lot, and it was Minis as far as you could see, right next to the runway. It was kind of cool. And so it's it's certainly talks. Every car company has variety of types of buyers, and this kind of shows that not every Mini buyer is the same, but a lot of Mini buyers have a lot in common.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting culture, whatever you want to call it.
Culture.
Yes.
We'll just say it's a culture.
All right. We've got a couple of listener questions this week. One of which is another recording, and as we promised last time, if you send us a good recording, might send you a box of something. So let's listen to this question here.
A box of something. What are we getting?
This one is from Mars. Mars is the name, not the location. So let's have a listen to Mars's question.
Our first call for Mars.
Hey, Wheel Bearings crew. Great show. I enjoy listening every week. Sorry I don't have any musical talent to compose a sea shanty. I can barely say sea shanty. So this is the best that I can do. I have many other questions and comments, but I don't want to hit you with all of them all at once. So here's just a couple. First of all, I am a driver education instructor. Just opened my own school less than a year ago. I use a dash cam for my drives, and it records the front of the vehicle. It records the driver and the passenger. It also has night vision. It's not great. It's decent night vision. But what I'm really unhappy with is the HD quality. It says that it's 1080p full HD, but when you look at the video, it's really not. I bought this cheap on one of those Chinese online sellers, and it was a good price, but obviously not very high quality dash cam. So my question is, can you recommend a good quality dash cam, possibly even one that connects to the OBD port, so that it can give me on the screen, it can give me the speed of the vehicle and maybe some other things. Second thing, I'm going to be shopping for another training car probably in the next several months. I'm looking for something that is safe, obviously, for teen drivers, something that can take abuse from said teen drivers, and then something that is not a gas guzzler. I'm not particularly looking for something super fuel efficient, but also something that's not going to break the bank every week when I go to fuel up. At the same time, I'm looking for something that is attractive to teens, something that can kind of entice them so that they would want to come and train with my driving school. So what do you recommend? A side note also, I currently have a 2019 Nissan Kicks, and I know that you guys love the Kicks, but I absolutely hate it. And there's a number of reasons for that. Topic for another day. Also, no Toyotas, please. So just something within that criteria. If you can please recommend something. Thank you.
All right. So first off, dash cams. Either of you have any experience with dash cams?
I don't. I've never used a dash cam. I've never really shot
Have
for
not either.
one. Yeah, but there is a different, like, you can see 1080p and you're just like, oh yeah, 1080p, but it's just pixel like density. But if the sensor itself is trash and the software is trash and if everything else is trash, you can still have that many pixels in that in that rectangle, but all those pixels are not great.
Yeah,
So
like
it can be a trick.
I've bought like cheap 1080p action cameras at Home Depot that were like $20, and they were just garbage. The image quality was there was 1080 pixels by what 1920, but they were terrible pixels. It just looked horrible. So the resolution is no guarantee. What about you, Perry? Have you used any dash cams?
I've never used a dash cam, no. Although I did notice in the Camry that I had that it had a built-in dash cam, which apparently is a new thing with Toyota. I didn't use it, but I did see it there. I actually had to look up to see what that device was in the windshield, and it is a dash cam.
Okay.
Something new.
Well, I also have not used any dash cams, although I do have one here. That last year at the Mama Spring Rally, some reps from Nextbase were there, and they were giving these out to people. And so I have one that is still in the box, brand new, never been used.
I have one somewhere in my room.
It's
never installed it.
It's it does,
we get these geeks.
It does not hook up to OBD to the OBD port, and I'm not sure if there are any that do. There probably are some out there that do, but this is the Nextbase 522W. It's a 1440p display or camera, and it's got a 3-inch touchscreen on the back, so you can control it. It's got Wi-Fi, so you can transfer stuff to your phone. You can control it from your phone. It's got emergency SOS, so if it detects a crash, it can automatically call 911 through your phone. And this one only looks forward, but there is a port on the side, and Nextbase also sells a rear view camera module that you can plug in. So it basically you just plug it right into the side of this thing, so it gives you the interior view, so it can capture that as well. This
Cool.
one is $299 for the main camera for the 522 GW model, and then another $99 for the interior camera. And tell you what, Mars, if you want to send me another email with your shipping address, I will send you this Nextbase dash cam that I've never used. It's still sealed in the box, brand new, with an SD card, and or a micro SD card, and you're free to try it out, use it if you like it, and you want to try the, if you decide you like it, you're welcome to get the cabin view module for $99. Add that on there, and do whatever you like with it. So,
Because we believe the children are our future. Teach them well. Let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside
all right. So
as drivers.
So aside from monitoring what the children that are our future are doing, what do you have any recommendations for what kind of car Mars should get to replace the Kicks that he is so not enamored with?
I like the Corolla.
He said no Toyotas.
No Toyota, like a Subaru Impreza.
My first thought was a Corolla hybrid.
Yeah,
It's relatively inexpensive
Impreza.
for me.
I don't know if the Subaru Impreza is
Impreza or
cool for
Civic
kids.
is not a bad way to go either.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The Civic might be more kid friendly. Like the kids will like it more. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know if the kids are into Imprezas. I don't think they're into anything from Subaru outside of the BRZ, WRX, STI, etc.
yeah.
I don't know. Get them a BRZ. Just give the kids some.
I thought the answer to everything was Miata. But
The answer to everything is Miata.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
obviously,
cool.
that would be the ideal choice. But I think most driver's ed programs, they usually take 3 kids at a time in the car. So the Miata, not the ideal choice there.
I mean, well, not as I say, Camry's a Toyota, so that doesn't work either.
Yeah.
But
You can still get a Versa. Those are pretty
I
cheap.
mean, since everybody drives SUVs, should it be a crossover of some sort? I mean, like
that's a choice. CRV maybe, CRV hybrid.
Hyundai Tucson,
Yeah,
or
Hyundai Kona, nice and inexpensive.
Hyundai Konas.
yeah,
It could work too. Plus, it looks kind of cool.
yeah.
They do kind of look cool.
So there's some choices. Some hybrid options. For improving the fuel economy. So I mean, you get something like the Civic hybrid, or or the Kona, or the Tucson. You can get you can be getting mid-30s to 40 miles per gallon.
Yeah.
With those things.
It kind of looks pretty cool, and it's there's a lot more room for the kids.
Mhm.
It's the same height as most of the cars are probably going to buy anyway. Starts at 24,250. The Versa's still available for like another.
Well, given that he doesn't like the
week.
kicks, I'm gonna guess that he's not going to be real
Versus
crazy about
would be
the
pretty
Versa.
similar, yeah.
Yeah,
the Versa
they're the
is
same platform. Yeah.
Yeah,
The kicks is basically a slightly taller Versa hatchback.
yeah. It's a raised Versa.
Yeah.
Let's see. Who else has an inexpensive
Kia.
vehicle? Kia.
Yeah, there's the Kia Sportage, or the
Yeah.
Kia Soul.
Oh yeah, the Soul would be an excellent choice.
Kia. How much does Soul start at? 35 mpg. Where's the price? Free. It's free. No, it starts at 20,000.
Oh, There you go.
20,290.
Kia Soul. There's
Soul's a great one to go.
It looks like
Yeah.
a little monster. You
Yeah,
drive
and
around. It's like a Pokemon of a car.
yeah, it's cute.
Kids love
easy
Pokemon,
to
right?
fit 4 in there for your driver program.
Yeah,
And I know
definitely.
I've seen there's lots of Souls around here that are used for driver's ed. So yeah, go for the Kia Soul.
Kia Soul.
Yeah, so I agree with
Great
that.
little car. And whenever you're not doing driver's ed, if you have to put stuff in the back, you can because there's lots of room.
And if you can get over your aversion to Toyota, the Corolla hybrid or the Corolla Cross hybrid, be great choices as well.
I always forget about the Corolla Cross.
Yeah.
I think everybody forgets about the Toyota Corolla.
Yeah, they have an SUV. Toyota has an SUV for every 2-inch increment.
Do they still sell the CHR? Or has that been dropped?
I know they were going to discontinue it, but I don't know if it's been
I
discontinued
know
yet.
they have a new generation CHR overseas. I don't know if they're going to bring that here or not.
CHR. It's still 2022 has been discontinued. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So there's some choices for you, Mars. And like I said, shoot me an email with your mailing address, and I will send you this Nextbase dash cam to try out, and you can tell us how it worked out for you.
I don't even know where the dash cam is in my house, and it's like 5 or 6 years old. So the company's probably defunct. So I don't think it would be of any use to anyone.
Yeah.
I should find that thing, see if it even works.
Nextbase still sells this particular model. It's one of the current models. So at least their website is still live, and you can get them on Amazon and other places. And I think they sell them at Best Buy as well.
Cool.
All right. The other email came from Mark. It says, I've been listening to your podcast for a little while and greatly enjoy it. I'm wondering if this question is something of which anyone has an opinion. Well, we always have opinions. In my quest to reduce my car insurance premiums, both Allstate and State Farm have an option to use a tracker which plugs into the ALDL port, also more commonly known as the OBD2 port. While listening to one of the Twit podcasts with Leo, the cast had a couple of negative issues with this. Allstate admits that they do gather location data, and they claim it's done anonymously. Well, okay. Any opinions from the hive mind here?
I don't like people tracking me as much as I can possibly help it. I know that they're tracking me with my phone, and every time I do something,
I'm just going to say, if you have a phone,
yeah,
they
I
already
mean,
know who you
but
are.
as a former InfoSec reporter, I don't want to be actively like, hey, this is my location. I don't take pictures. You'll never see me there's no video or pictures of cars in front of my house.
Right.
like on the internet. Like it's just not a thing I want to do. I have there's no pictures of, when I take pictures of my backyard, I make sure that they're framed in a way that you can't figure out like where I am in Northern California. I don't even tell people the city I live in Northern California online. So
What are you hiding?
It's a lot. But I don't like,
He doesn't want anybody coming and stealing his Daft Punk helmets.
Exactly.
Yes.
So many of them. And so the idea, and they can say it's done anonymously, but a lot of these like terms and services can change overnight based on whatever. And they'll send you a letter, and you're not going to read it, and you're like, all right, this is the privacy update. You're like, okay, and then you throw it away, and it turns out that they're selling your location data to Burger King, or to tire companies, or to even the automaker that you've gotten this vehicle from. If you're leasing it, maybe they're like, oh well.
No, it's now actually usually the automaker that's selling the information to the insurance company, because they're getting it directly from the telematics information.
Yeah, that's why I don't.
So they don't have to use one of these dongles.
Yeah, that's the GM model. So if you're driving a GM, they're already doing
everybody's doing it. It's not just GM.
It would be interesting to hear how much of a discount you get for providing that information.
Well, and the other thing is, an insurance company trying to claim that they're doing it anonymously makes no sense, because the reason why they're putting this dongle in there is they want to monitor your specific driving behavior. How fast do you accelerate? How hard do you brake? How fast do you drive? And they're using that to make adjustments to your particular insurance premiums. So it makes no sense to do that anonymously, because it's tied directly.
That's a good point.
Your driving behavior is tied to your insurance premiums.
Yeah. I think they're saying, when they say anonymously, it's like the way that ad trackers sell your data anonymously, where they're selling you bulk information, so they can say, well, this person who is this old and lives in this area does this while driving. They're not saying Roberto Baldwin lives in Northern California and spends way too much time driving to Popeye's Chicken. So it's instead,
it's more of an aggregate of information that they're gathering.
It's an aggregate of people my age who are going to Popeyes.
On the other hand, if you drive a Tesla and get Tesla insurance, they are very explicitly tying it to your specific, and Tesla insurance will adjust your premiums from month to month based on what you did in the last 4 weeks. Yeah. So they're constantly updating your premiums. And it's not just discounts. They will raise your premiums too if you use things like ludicrous mode.
If you use all the fun things that they're like, Tesla doesn't make slow cars.
If you run into a motorcycle when you're not paying attention.
Yeah, if you use FSD or autopilot, they can raise your insurance premiums.
Yeah, so it's I don't know. I don't know what I had a cousin who had it, and I was just like, man, I don't know. And he left it like the dongle. He moved to Germany, left the dongle in the car, and I was fixing the car up to sell it for him. And I immediately pulled that thing out. I was like, nah, man.
Yeah. I guess to answer your question, Mark, it depends on how you feel about privacy. If you put one of these dongles in your car, that is one less pathway one more pathway that you have to being tracked, and you will be tracked. Like you said, you're already being tracked by your cell phone carrier, whether that's Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, whoever, they know where you are at all times. And there are probably countless other devices in your life that are also tracking you. If you are, based on the question, I'm assuming that you do care somewhat about being tracked. How much of an insurance savings are you going to get? It's debatable.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what how much of the discount you'll get with it. So
you can ask insurance companies, if they're not giving you at least 10 to 20% cut in your insurance premiums, I probably wouldn't bother.
Also, do you drive around like a crazy person?
Yeah.
Do you really stomp on the accelerator? Like, and my regular cars, for the most part, well, maybe not the BRZ, but the EVs, I'm just cruising around because I'm just doing errands in my life. I don't drive like a maniac because there's no point. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, I get track time with these cars. And so that sort of, that urge is that hunger has been filled. So in my regular life, my wife says I drive like a grandma,
Yeah.
I'm just like cruising around. I'm not in a hurry to go in. I'm like, what's the point? I'm on the freeway. There's like literally nothing I'm going to learn about this car going 70, or 20 miles over the speed limit on a freeway. Woo!
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, driving around California for the past week, my wife likes to drive briskly, but she does not like to be driven briskly. She doesn't like curvy roads from the passenger side of the car. And so, I try to drive as smoothly as I can, and not do a lot of hard braking acceleration. Yeah, I could get through those roads a lot faster, but I don't, because we're on vacation. I don't care. There's no rush.
I do the same thing. My wife gets car sick if I drive aggressively, and so I drive completely differently when she's in the car than when I'm by myself.
Yeah,
and it depends what I'm driving.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If I'm driving the Miata, I'm tossing that thing around, but that doesn't have much power, and it's not going to go very fast anyway. So
this guy's doing 40 on the back road.
It's a momentum car. You just want to make sure you carry your momentum through the curves, and because you're not going to accelerate very fast. Actually, that reminds me of one thing I forgot to mention about the Mercedes, the EQS, was I was really shocked at how efficient that thing was. It's rated at 39 kilowatt hours per 100 miles. So like, that would be 3.9 or 390 watt hours per mile. And I was averaging about 310 to 320 over the week I had it. And, I was driving smoothly, but, not like a grandma either. And so that thing was actually, and I think it's rated at 336 miles of range, 339 miles of range. And, I think I could have very easily topped 350, if I had gone through a full charge. Very efficient vehicle. So, it all comes down to, Mark, how do you feel about being tracked? If you don't like it, then,
don't do it.
Yeah. Just don't get the dongle, give up the discount.
Where do you draw the line on being tracked?
Yeah.
That's
and make sure that your car, if you've got a newer car that's got a telematics system in there, you're being tracked. That thing's being tracked as well. So you may want to have that disabled as well.
There's no escape.
Yeah. On the other hand, if you have a newer car with connectivity, and you also have, a modern infotainment system, might not work so well if you turn off that connectivity. In fact, it probably won't work.
Yeah, I was going to say, be careful what you turn off.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that are sort of dependent upon that ability to say, I'm here, I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm here, I'm there.
All right. Well, Perry, thanks for joining us this week, stepping in for Nicole.
Thanks for having me. It's always entertaining.
Definitely have to have you back again.
Yeah, Perry party.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Sounds fun.
I'll see you at Erratic Brewing soon.
Yes,
sooner.
right outside my door.
Yep. All right. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Talk to you guys later. Bye.